The Miami Dolphins have made their first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft by landing big Kenneth Grant to play in the middle. We're talking about Kenneth Grant, the newest member of the Miami Dolphins, here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, and the NFL Draft lead for the 33rd team. I want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers, because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions do apply. Do not think Kenneth Grant is going to need to brush up on the old LinkedIn job profile anytime soon. He has just been hired to be a big, mauling monster of a man in the middle for the Miami Dolphins. And I think the thing that Mike McDaniel touched on in the post-pick presser that really stood out to me was he talked about the tonality of this pick and the tonality of the football team and trying to define that. And you've seen with skill group players and with James Daniels and even Larry Borum is kind of like the utility offensive lineman, in the linebacker core, and some of the safety ads, there's been a common theme of they have been going after more physical football players. And when I think about Kenneth Grant, and I pull up the report that I have on the 33rd team, Dalvin Tomlinson was the name that most came to my mind. 6'3.5", 342 pounds verified at the Shrine. Big time, rare athletic profile for a player of his stature that I think is going to get typecast based on his weight. People are going to see 342 pounds or 330 pounds or whatever he weighed in at, and they're going to assume that Kenneth Grant is just a lump on a bog on a log in the bottom of the lake, right, in a nose tackle. This is not a nose tackle. Now, he could play nose tackle. He played about 2/3 of his snaps last year as a 3 technique. Please do not think that the Dolphins just drafted a nose tackle with the 13th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. They did not. This is a player that has disruptive tendencies. He has 50 pressures over the last 2 seasons in 550 pass rush opportunities. It's about 10% pressure rate for a player of this stature. And when you consider the intersection of need with value, that's what I like about the pick for Kenneth Grant, because when I reflect on that player list that I had for the Dolphins and those 16 first-round grades, and a couple of those guys had medical flags, and became apparent that Will Johnson had a medical, so Will Johnson's medical flag failed, and you had who else with a medical flag? You had Josh Simmons with a medical flag who failed. You had Mike Green with a character flag. And sure enough, Will Johnson doesn't go in the first round, and Mike Green with the character flag doesn't go in the first round. And Josh Simmons lasts till 32. And those were the discussions with those players. It's like, the risk is not worth, the juice is not worth the squeeze at pick number 13. So when you disqualify those players with those off-field flags, you had 12 players, and Travis Hunter was gone and Abdul Carter was gone. The top 3 players on the board for me were Jahdae Barron, Tyler Warren, Will Johnson with a medical flag, and then it was Malachi Starks and Kenneth Grant. And they all had very close, within a half a point of each other, grades on a 100-point scale. Totally fine with the value of the player. It's the vision of the player that I think kind of speaks to what this team is trying to change about its DNA. And that's what I like the most, is this dude will punch you in the mouth up front and has the potential to be a big-time snap taker. He played 550 snaps last year on defense. And then he played another 50 snaps on special teams. This is a 600 snap player for Michigan last year. And he only played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He played in 12 games. So you extrapolate that snap volume, 600 snaps. I'm not a math guy, and I just got off a 4-hour live stream, but I can do this with a calculator. At 50 snaps a game. By 17 games, you're talking 850 snap players, what the pace that Kenneth Grant was on as a member of the Michigan Wolverines this past year. So the outlook of replacing Calais Campbell or replacing Christian Wilkins, I'm not going to tell you that he's going to play 850 snaps this year. But if you see Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, Michigan, and your reaction is he's 340 pounds, he's a nose tackle, there's no value on passing downs, I'd encourage you to watch the tape. This is one of the 5 best players that was available on the board for me, and he was is this factual? He was the highest rated trench player that I had. Well, Jahdae Barron in the secondary, kind of a hybrid defensive back. Josh Simmons with the medical flag wasn't really in consideration. So Tyler Warren's a tight end, kind of a trench guy, but not really. Will Johnson's a corner with a medical flag. Malachi Starks and Kenneth Grant. He was the highest rated trench player, authentic trench player that didn't have a medical flag on my board. And the Dolphins took him at 13. He was my 12th ranked player overall. There's 0% chance that I'm going to get on here and be mad about it. And I hope none of you are either. And it doesn't matter what school he went to and what school Stephen Ross went to. None of that matters. I did the evaluation of the player. I like the player. I like the fit. I like the ability to match a need with a player that can play a high volume of snaps and play 2/3 of his snaps in the B gaps and has a 10% pressure rate over the last 2 seasons. What's not to like? It's a big physical. You want to talk about the Dolphins and playing against competitive teams, and the issue that you've had is in the trenches you haven't held up. Kenneth Grant's going to help change that. And boy, is he going to make Jordyn Brooks a better player, because as good as Calais Campbell was too, he wasn't a nose tackle. He was a 3 technique, but he was a 3 technique who more often pushed outside. Kenneth Grant's a 3 technique that can push inside, and he can live in the A gaps because he's 340 pounds. He's got length. He's got twitch. He's got long range. He's running down running backs outside the numbers. He's got the ability to collapse the pocket. You get him isolated in some rush opportunities, and one-on-one with interior offensive linemen, you better drop anchor on him, because if you don't, he's going to take you for a ride. He's got that power element to his game as well. I want to read a little bit off the report. I don't like reading on the show, but I'm going to read some of the report that I have on Mason Graham. Or of Kenneth Grant, and contrast him to Mason Graham, which I did in the report, and talk a little bit about where he can make an impact short and long term on the Dolphins. We'll talk a little bit more about the draw for the board at 13. And then we'll talk about the landscape for 48 and what might be awaiting the Dolphins tomorrow. That's next here on Locked On Dolphins. So make sure you guys stick with us. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post Your Job is LinkedIn's new feature that can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach with qualified candidates. It's no wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. I am hitting the caffeine heavy. It's 12:45 p.m., 12:45 a.m., case in point, hitting the caffeine heavy on Friday morning. We did the live show on Locked On NFL Scouting, myself and Joe Marino, from 7:45 to 11:45. So just now really getting a chance to get caught up with the press conference and Kenneth Grant and his media availability, and hear the phone call that the Dolphins social media team put out, which was really cool to hear Kenneth Grant talking to Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel and Stephen Ross. But I want to talk a little bit more about this Kenneth Grant character that's the newest member of the Miami Dolphins and can help transform the physicality component of the trenches for Miami. I was a two-way player on the offensive and defensive lines while throwing shot put in high school. He was a 4-star recruit, blocked 8 kicks during his high school career, committed to Michigan in September of 2021 as a member of the 2022 recruiting class, played in all 14 games as a true freshman, rotated on defense and played special teams, was a starter, emerged as a starter in 2023, starting 5 games out of 15 as Michigan won the national championship. He was second team All Big Ten, and then set a career high in snaps with 600 total snaps on defense and special teams. Now, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. He has been documented as high as 360 pounds. So you're going to want to make sure that if he's going to play the volume of snaps that we're talking about and do so in South Florida, the playing weight is going to be a point of emphasis. The pass rush profile does show flashes, but there's more growth and development to be had in that regard. He might be a little bit more of just a organic power rusher and pocket collapser early on in his career as he develops the game. But the range that he has, the movement skills for a player of his stature, the anchor and reset of the line of scrimmage that he has to create knockback and win the point of attack is all really rare stuff. Grant's a brick house of a human being who offers explosive power. It's impressive to watch him bull rush and collapse the pocket in one-on-one assignments as a pass rusher, and equally impressive to see him create knockback at the point of attack. More refined as a run defender than he's a pass rusher, but offers flashes of brilliance in both phases. His physical presence and frame ensure him a relatively high floor as a run defender in the NFL. When he's at his best, he's winning with power, but he has a low build and a low center of gravity thanks to a squatty stature at 6'3.5". Projects best as an A-gap defender in the NFL, but has the versatility to play in gap penetration or gap control fronts. She should be considered a scheme transcendent option to play in odd or even fronts as well. So you keep this guy 330, 320 in that ballpark. He was on Bruce Feldman's Freaks list, which Bruce Feldman for The Athletic puts out a list of the most freakish athletes in college football on an annual basis. Kenneth Grant was on that list for just how explosive and dynamic he was as a player at his size. That was what was most impressive. He was documented running a 4.9 after cutting his weight down from 360 pounds. So walked into the strength and conditioning program as a 17-year-old kid at 365 pounds, according to Michigan strength and conditioning coach, but has prolific short area explosiveness and quite frankly, range. And he ran down Penn State's Katron Allen. He runs a 4.6. He ran him down from behind 30 yards downfield on an explosive run that popped down the field. So I really like the athletic profile with the physicality, with the frame, with the need, with the value. Got no issues with the pick. Seems like some people were upset that it wasn't corner. Seems some people were upset that it was a Michigan player. Seems some people are upset that it wasn't an offensive lineman. But really, with the way that the board fell, I think this is important to talk a little bit. The board draw at 13. If you were going to go with offensive linemen, we sat here and endured the Tyler Booker debate for what felt like the last 6 weeks. Tyler Booker wasn't on the board. Kelvin Banks wasn't on the board. Armand Membu wasn't on the board. Will Campbell wasn't on the board. So you had Josh Simmons with the medical flag. He fell to 32. You had Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. He went 18 to Seattle. But realistically, like if it wasn't going to be Gray Zabel, Your trench play options weren't players that were in play for clean medical background reasons, or you were going to reach on a talent just to draft the talent for the sake of saying you checked the box and drafted an offensive lineman. When you have a pick at 48, and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole going to tomorrow yet, because we're going to do that in just a minute, you got some options. Now, I think your options, it's going to be 48 or bust for getting what I would feel to be a starter, like a plug-in starter. I would love to see it, but you also have this situation at corner that's unfolding. And man, if we're being honest, the corners that are still out there, Will Johnson is still out there. Savon Revel is still out there. Trey Amos is still out there. Darian Porter's still out there. Benjamin Morrison's still out there. Jacob Parrish is still out there. That's my corners, if we're including Travis Hunter, and I'm looking at my horizontal board here. My corner 3, my corner 4, my corner 5, my corner 6, my corner 7, my corner 8 are still on the board for the Dolphins. And I had Jacob Parrish. I mean, Jacob Parrish is my 41st overall player. Darian Porter is my 34th overall player. Trey Amos is my 33rd overall player. Obviously, Will Johnson was a top 10 player with a medical flag that became increasingly more intense as this situation played itself out. So Benjamin Morrison, I have as a early 2 as well from a value perspective. You have so many options at corner that if you're going to facilitate finding a extra draft capital, you might want to try to figure something out, get real creative here in the next 18 hours because you're not going to be able to check both boxes. Now, I think you are going to have the opportunity upcoming to land a starter. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and look at what is left in both spots and how the offensive line run might impact who's there at 48. We'll get into that next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins, so make sure you guys stick with us. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy, whether you're picking your favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways for you to play your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into same-game parlays for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So as you review who is left on the board, Tate Ratledge, Jonah Savinaya, Marcus Mbo. You probably have 3 opportunities for a starting interior offensive lineman. You also have Charles Grant, Ariante Ursary. But that's kind of it for guys that I feel like are like shoe-in starter candidates. It's a group of 4 names, 5 names. You'll have probably one of them at your disposal because you have this surplus of talent at some of these other spots that's available. You've got Nicky Minwari, Nick Scorton, Donovan Izaraku, Carson Schlesinger, Xavier Watts, Mike Green, Will Johnson. We talked about the corners that exist. You kind of have the second tier of wide receivers with Burden and Ayu Manor and Jaden Higgins, and Jack Betch, Travion Henderson, Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor at some of the skill group names. The quarterback bundle, the second tier, whether it's Milroe or Tyler Shuck or Shadur Sanders, who slides out of the first round, you're going to have options because there's no way, no how all 5 of those players in that bundle are going to be off the board at 48. So I got corners, Johnson, Revel, Amos, Porter, Morrison, Parrish. I got 6 names. Then I got 5 names for the interior offensive line bundle. If every single one of those, you need 5 names not in those 2 bundles to go to get a starting caliber player that you feel like you could draft and they would be plugged in and be a starter. We're going to circle the wagons tomorrow before the draft, sometime late morning. and I need to restack my board and cross names off and kind of run through a mock draft based off what happened tonight. I haven't had a chance to do that, but I wanted to get you guys my reaction to the Kenneth Grant pick, which I think is a good one. He was my 12th overall player that you got at 13th overall, addresses a need, addresses one of the biggest weaknesses in stylistically the way the football team was constructed last year. And I think he has a chance to play very well off of Zach Sealer. And I think when you get Benito Jones in there, Benito can be an odd front end, or you can put Kenneth Grant out there and be an odd front end, or there's some alignment versatility with Kenneth that you get that I think if you're assuming he's just going to be an A-gap defender, what I would tell you is Kenneth Grant throughout the course of his 3-year career has played 1,054 snaps on defense. 300 of them came in the A-gap and 734 of them came in the B-gap. And he ran a 4.9 at Michigan at 335 pounds. Do not mistake this. Do not mistake this for a nose tackle. And for that reason, I think the floor is a nose tackle, but the ceiling to be a much more disruptive all-around talent exists. And he's played consistent football. Another thing that I like about him is he's not penalized and he doesn't miss tackles. And, those are little things in the grand scale of a defensive tackle who a lot of times their value is in creating knockback and pushing the pocket and creating disruption. He also batted down 8 passes the last 2 seasons. So he gets his hands up. So he is disruptive in the pass game, even if he's not getting home and creating sacks. He has 4 missed tackles the last 2 seasons combined across just short of 1,000 defensive snaps. 4 missed tackles, so a 4% missed tackle rate. And then he's been penalized twice in the last 1,000 snaps as well. So you got a lot of the little things for a guy that just turned 21 in October. So he'll be a 22-year-old rookie in October. You got some longevity here versus the concern that existed with Jahdae Barron. It's an investment in the trenches and an investment in the physicality of this football team. I'm in. I hope you guys are too. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Dolphins' outlook tomorrow before round 2 starts tomorrow night. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins, your team every day. Appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your evening. If you're a sicko and you're still up like I am at 1 a.m., I'll talk to you all in the morning. Go Fins.